What's up guys, Jonathan here, and today I'm going to do my first video with video. So I've done a couple other tutorials, but I've never done any with an actual introduction or anything like that. So today that's what we're doing. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos of how to get started on YouTube and what to do as far as starting, and they all say to start. So that's what we're doing. So today I would like to go over how I get rid of people in my images. This can be done for objects as well. I'll do some more specific, harder to do object removals later, but this today is going to be focused on removing people from images. So let's get started. All right, so I already have Photoshop open and I've pulled this image in. This could have been a super busy hiking area and there's just always people in the way, or this could have been just an intentional photo and maybe you just forgot to take one without a person in it. So we're going to remove this person from this image. So one of the ways a lot of people use is the clone stamp tool. So that's this one right over here. This is the clone stamp tool. You can also get to it by hitting S, and to edit this background layer you'll have to either unlock it or hit Control J, and that will copy that layer. So to use this, we're going to go make sure your opacity is at 100. This is just for me. For this specific instance, this is what I would do. You can use the lasso and, just mark out where you want to edit. And I'm actually going to include all of this because this was the shadow, her shadow. So this wouldn't have been there. If it wasn't too noticeable, you wouldn't have to try and remove all of this as well, but in this case it is kind of noticeable. So we're going to use the clone stamp tool. Again, that's by hitting S on your keyboard and by using the left and right brackets, which are just above the enter key, changes your brush size. If you hold Alt on your keyboard, you can select where you want your source to be. And so for this part, I'm just going to get rid of just this part. I don't want to get too carried. All right, I'm going to be able to get by. I didn't want to grab this grass and put this weird clump of grass over here on her. So we're going to, I usually start pretty small and I usually do intentional areas first. I don't just, grab and start painting. And I try and pick things where it kind of looks like that would make sense, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going to grab from way up here for this area right here where her head and her backpack was because of this shadow right here. So we're going to see how this looks. So that doesn't look too bad. So we'll fix this. If there's going to be a hard line right there, that's one of the issues with using the lasso. The lasso tool. Yeah. So that's one of the issues with using the lasso tool to select, is that it's going to create a hard line where you selected. So we'll have to fix that as opposed to just using a soft brush, which I am. I have the hardness set at 0, and you can do that just by right-clicking on your keyboard, right-clicking on the mouse. So just to keep painting away here. So you see I got to this grass and it put this random clump of grass here. So I'm actually going to undo that. And paint over her some more. And so I'm going to pick wool from down here. All right, so that looks pretty good. And so Control D to undo the selection that you had selected. So that looks pretty good, but you can see where there's that hard line that I was talking about. You actually can't really see it on the rocks just because they're rocks and there are hard lines in rocks. So, but for this, I'm going to leave the hardness at 0. But I'm going to change the opacity down just a little bit so it's not quite as overpowering as it could be. So just here, there's a little bit of a hard edge there, and you don't want to do this so it looks muddy. You can do that when you start using the lighter opacities. It can start to not look very clean. So this shadow was actually from her. And so I'm not actually going to go just directly over it. I just want this shadow to not be so hard. So you can see how it's starting to look kind of weird. So for this is going to be in the next thing, but we're going to use the patch tool. I've found that using the patch tool is actually to use it. Oh, that was weird. Oh, okay. So I have the destination. That was strange. So if you select this to be this, then you drag it over what you want to copy. So that kind of tripped me up there for a minute. So I had destination selected. So then you're going to select what you want to drag over something else, versus if you have source selected, you're going to drag what you want to fix over to the source that you want it to replace it with. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I can't say that anybody would look at this picture. You're automatically going to go to the waterfall when you look at this picture on your Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're sharing this to. So, I mean, I don't know that I would have known there's a person here. So this looks pretty good. And the benefit of doing this on another layer is that you still have your original photo. So even if you save over this, and I always save a copy, save as a copy. I never save over the original. I have tons of originals. So if you save this as your Photoshop document, a PSD document, you still have this layer and you still have the original layer as well. So, but we don't need this anymore, so you can drag this down to the trash can, or you could have just hit delete. So this time we're going to use just the patch tool. And I like the patch tool. It's one of my favorite tools, and the layer is locked. I forgot to make a copy. So that's controlled. Oh, it's making a copy from that selection. So Control D to get rid of the selection, unlock the layer, make a copy. Okay. So now we'll just use the patch tool to get rid of her. We're going to try to use this again. So like I said, I like to use them more than one tool together. I don't usually like to use just one, because that just doesn't make sense to me. When you have lots of options, use your options. But for the sake of trying to do it, I guess, we are going to try to do this with just the patch tool. So that actually doesn't look too bad for just using the patch tool. So, man, I don't know if it's just because I can, if we know that there was something there, that you can see it. And that's the other thing you have to realize. The person that's looking at this on your social media platforms not going to have known there was a person there unless they've seen the original picture. So I'd say that's looking pretty good, and that's just using the patch tool. Right over here, you can just, there's the spot healing brush, the healing brush tool, or the patch tool. I mean, that looks pretty good, and that's just using that, and that took, what, 30 seconds, so super fast. So again, you can just hit delete to delete that layer, and Control J again to make a layer via a copy. And so this time we're going to use a different one, and we're going to go through this together because I have not used this tool. This is called the object selection tool. This is just came out with Photoshop 2020, and I have not used this, so this is a first for me. So we'll see how this goes. It did a pretty good job. we're just going to help it make sure it's selected all of her. So on this, you want to make sure you're adding to the layer. If you have this one selected, you can take away from the selection. If you have that one, you're going to add to the selection. And like before, I actually want to remove this shadow because this shadow was created by her. So I guess you wouldn't actually know that that was created by her if you were just looking at this image, but I know, so I want this to go away. So it missed some of her shoulder. Didn't get all of her head here, or the pack. So that looks pretty good. Didn't quite get all of her arm here where it's kind of in the shadow, and I must think it's the rocks behind her. Okay, well that looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So now we're going to use the, so I'm zooming in and out because I have the magnifying selected, and then I have scrubby zoom checked. So by dragging left and right, you can zoom in and out. So now we can go to Edit, Content Aware Fill, or you can hit Shift 5 and it Shift F5 and it will open the fill tool, and then you can select that from that window. So here it's going to, this is what I saw and I really liked this option. So now instead of like using the patch tool and you're doing this one at a time, you can source it from the whole wherever you want in the image. So this, not really sure what it's taking from up here. Looks like it's this area right here is what it's selecting from way up there, but so yeah. So by hitting the H tool or the H key on the keyboard, you can grab the image and move it around. And by hitting B, you can use your brush tool, and then you're either going to be subtracting from the overlay area or adding to the overlay area. So if we select up here, it's going to add that as an option to select from to fill this area. So you actually see it's changing the image when you take away a selection a little bit. It's actually altering where it's filling in. But so I wonder if we were trying to use this area to make that shadow, where that shadow just kind of would be stopping where she is. So if we add this area, I'll be curious to see if it changes that. So it actually did a little bit change that area. So we'll see if adding more of those areas with the shadow, how that changes that. So we'll add some more of that. I don't know if that's making it better or worse. Let's get rid of some of this. So I'm just looking down here. I'm just looking at this area right here of what this is doing when I add or take away from this selection. So that changed quite a bit. So that actually looks pretty good. And you can definitely see where it's removing her. So we'll see if that stays or not. So this must just change your layer mask. Color adaptation. Let's see what high does. Very high? That looks awful. So we're not going to do that. What about none? How about default again? Default. We're going to leave it as default. So let's see. Indicates excluded area, sampling area. We want that. Mirror. No. Allow content resizing for a better match. Sure, let's do that. May cause. Why not? Let's see what happens. I don't know if anything really changed, if that looks better or not. No, I don't think that looks better. So we're going to leave this like this. And we're going to hit OK. All right, so I'd say if you did that at full speed and you just selected her really fast, picked what you wanted to select, I mean, that would only take 10 seconds to do. And the fact that it's pretty clean, I mean, you could, I guess the whole point is that it's automated so you don't have to fix it, but, ooh, so that actually merged that as a layer. So we're just going to merge those two layers so it's on top of there, and we'll just call it a day. So I feel like it did a pretty good job. I don't know that it's a perfect match for this, so we're going to leave this as normal. It did an okay job. I don't know that it did any better than just us doing it by ourselves. At least for this image, it doesn't seem like that would have been a better option, because it just leaves a pretty hard line. So might do some more work on that and try to get better at using the content aware fill tool, and then make another tutorial just specifically about that one. But that looks pretty good. Yep, I'd be happy with that. So that's removing somebody from a photo. That's using the patch tool, the content aware fill tool with the object selection tool, which is new for Photoshop 2020, and using the clone stamp tool. I believe using a combination of all of these three is the most effective way to remove somebody and make it look most natural. So thanks for watching. Hope you all have lots more coming out. Hit that notification bell. I hear that's a thing. Like, subscribe. Leave a comment below of anything you'd like to see in future videos. Thanks for watching.